So we're back in the game room, and we have a little bit of Power Stone 2 going on there, hence the music in the background. And I have some PC Engine pickups to show you. So these are ones I've actually picked up in December, and these are straight from Japan, from Surugaya. I've actually been using Surugaya more and more these days because Yahoo Auction has become massively expensive. Really difficult to find some bargains on Yahoo Auctions these days. And if you really know what game you're after and you kind of know what price it should be, then Surugaya is a good option. You can monitor the prices there and you can actually pick out some bargains. Plus, always the game you get is in absolute top condition. Also use a shipping proxy rather than something like Zen Market, so that really cuts down on the costs. So let's see what I picked up in December. So first up, I managed to find myself a Ryu Fighting Stick for the PC Engine. You have no idea how long I've been looking for one of these. A long time. And this one is boxed and absolutely minty. It's fantastic condition. I also have never owned a Avenue 6 pad controller, so I had to rectify that as well so I could finally play some Street Fighter and other fighting games. And these both actually came from the same store. This was from the Surugaya Umeda Loft store. So next up is the games, and first up is Jackie Chan. The best way to describe it is a kung fu action platform adventure. Now if that doesn't get your attention or want to play it, then I don't know what will. It's kind of like the love child of New Adventure Island and Vigilante, and the result is an absolute cracking game. The game is an absolute stunner visually, and the sort of cartoony graphics I think really fit well into the game design. They've also added special moves for Jackie Chan to pull off for the final bosses, which is a cool little addition that you don't normally see on platformers. Difficulty wise, they start off easy and slowly ramp things up, and eventually have some quite challenging bosses. And in between you do have some nice little levels, some little challenges to get extra bonuses and lives, which sort of break things up and makes things interesting. So I picked this up for 5,800 yen, which is probably around $50 US, which I think is an absolute bargain for this game. With the prices that PC Engine games go for now, this is still very affordable and such a good fun game. An absolute must for your collection. So, staying with Hudson Soft, Power 11. Considering the number of games on the PC Engine, I'm surprised there's not that many football games on it compared to something like the wrestling games. And I'm yet to find a good football game. And after playing Power 11, I'm still yet to find a good football game. There's nothing terribly wrong with it, but there's just nothing terribly good with it either. It's very bland. I mean, the graphics are okay, the sound's okay, but the gameplay is just very, very boring, mundane. And there were so many good football games around at the time on the Master System or also on the SNES. But for 600 yen, I can't really complain. I just wish Taito brought out Hat-Trick Hero on the PC Engine. So next up is Newtopia II. So it doesn't take a rocket science to see what this is cloned after, and it looks pretty damn good. I've not spent much time with this one because of the language barrier. I do need to get a patch to play this properly, but from what I can see, it looks really interesting and looks very, very smooth. So the Japanese version costs about 3,500 yen compared to probably about $500 US for the US version. So next up is a very big hitter. It's Raiden. Don't know about you, but when I was growing up, Raiden was always the game that other shooters were measured against. While it may seem a little bit dated compared to some of the amazing shooters on the PC Engine, It is an absolute classic and Raiden deserves its respect. It's always had the reputation of being an extremely tough game and the PC Engine is just that. It being a horizontal game, you lost the vertical real estate that you needed, so you get a lot of ships that fly down very quickly that just shoot you straight in the face with very fast bullets. It's one of those games where you just got to stick with it and keep on going and you will be rewarded. Raiden is an absolute classic and the PC Engine version is an extremely good version of the game and highly recommended. But, and I say but, it comes at a cost. This used to be a relatively cheap game. I'm sure it used to only be about $35 for this game. It's now skyrocketed. It's now I think I paid 10,000 yen for this. That's a lot of money for this game. I'm seriously regretting missing the boat on this one, I tell you. I'm sure it was only about 35 US really. And there is another way to play this game. I will cover that shortly because there is a CD version. And strangely enough, I bought the CD version back in the day rather than this version, which I now regret. This is the other way to play the game on the CD-ROM. So it's identical game. You can see from the footage, but the sound is obviously a lot better. But some people do prefer the chip tune and I'm probably with them on that. I do find the CD music a little bit annoying when it breaks up in between stages, but it does sound pretty good. But this is where the salt gets rubbed in the old wound. I paid, I think I paid about $60 back in the day for this. We're talking about in 2013. And it's not changed much. You can pick this up for 7,000 yen, and while the other one has shot up in price, this has not increased. So I think the choice is fairly obvious. Get the CD version if you can. So let's move on to something a little bit more affordable, Power Sports. So again, this one I didn't really spend enough time to really be able to have a final judgment on the game. I did struggle a little bit with the languages, trying to understand exactly how to play the different events. Hence, you can see I'm completely useless in the footage. But first impression, yeah, it's relatively fun. It looks like it's quite a good multiplayer game. You get a few mates round, have a few beers, tapping some buttons, probably breaking them. If you like track and field, it's probably a no-brainer for you. And at 1,000 yen, what's that? That's like $9 US. It's not a bad gamble. I'm probably going to give it a little bit more of my time, just to give it a little bit of a chance, but to be honest, not too much time. So there's a little bit of Taito, and it is Champion Wrestler. When it comes to Taito, I've got a massive weakness. I absolutely love the arcade games, and on the PC Engine there's some amazing ports. Unfortunately, this is not one of them. Probably doesn't help the fact that I'm not a big wrestling game fan. I do like Saturday Slam Masters by Capcom, but that's about it really. Like I mentioned, I bought it purely for the fact it's Taito, and it cost me about 1,000 yen, so it didn't break the bank, but it's not really money well spent, is it? But if you do like wrestling games, why don't you give it a go and let me know if it's any good. But I must admit, the tunes on this is actually pretty good. I did like the music, and that's about it. Staying with Taito, we have Bari Bari Densetsu, obviously based on the manga of the same name. It is, of course, it's a motorcycle game, very similar to Hang On, but where you need to build up your bike and change your brakes and have a bit of strategy on your racing. This was almost a really good game. It's just a shame it's just let down a little bit on the racing side, which is kind of an important factor with a motorbike game. But if only it played a little bit more like Hang On, and then this would have been a cracking game. The actual graphics themselves are pretty good actually, and the sound, the tunes are pretty good as well. It's just let down on the tracks. It's just a little bit lonely out there. There's not a lot happening. It's a bit sparse, but so close to being a good game. It's also a relatively cheap game. It's only 1,000 yen, so it is worth picking up if you're into this kind of game. I'm definitely going to try and put a little bit more time in, see if things spice up a little bit or something happens. I'm rooting for this game to work, but I could be on a losing battle here. Down to the last game, and it's Violent Soldier. The first great thing about this game is its name. It tells you exactly what you need to know. This game is not a tiddlywink simulator, that's for sure. This is a great little shooter that was released also in the States as Sinistron. Because this game is not all over people's top 10 shooters on the PC Engine does not mean it shouldn't get a proper look in. It's actually quite a good shooter. Yeah, it is a little bit slow and a bit sluggish at the beginning, but it slowly builds up, and I do like the mechanics with the little beak opening up and shooting and spraying bullets. I do like that beak. And even though I almost had a seizure on level 2, it's still good graphics. I do like the visuals, I do like the backgrounds. I have to say I was a little bit let down by some of the end level bosses, especially level 2. I just walked up, slapped it around a little bit and it was all over. But some of the later stages do ramp up in difficulty, and I'll be interested to see how the later bosses are. Again, this is another one that's really fluctuated in price. So this used to be relatively cheap, about $35 US. I missed that boat, and it shot up in price to, I'm sure it went up to like $80 US. And that's when I was like, forget it, I'm not getting this game. But then it's gone down again. I got this for 6,000 yen. That's like $55. At that price range, I think is an absolute must. I think it's a great shooter. Congratulations, you made it to the end of the PC Engine pickups. So if you've got one game out of the bunch, it's got to be Jackie Chan. You got to get that for your collection. On that note, I'm thanking you, and I will see you later.